clutch is now off the bike. We're going to show you how to disassemble and do maintenance on the clutch. First, you take the basket off. Next, take the outer spacer off. Next, take the screws that hold the fixed plate on, back them off. Remove the fixed plate. Remove the first lining, then the floater. There should be 3 lining and 2 floaters. Inspect all the components, look at the drum, make sure there's no cracking or excessive notching in the tabs. Check the wear and check the wear of your lining and floaters. Lining should measure 100 thousandths at the beginning. Lining is good until approximately 90 thousandths. This is the fixed plate. Check for excessive wear or cracking. The fixed plates should last anywhere from 30 to 50 hours of racing. Check your floaters. They start out at 50 thousandths. If they don't typically wear all that quickly, but if they go below 45 thousandths, you need to replace them. Also checking for flatness on the floater. You can use emery paper, 220 to 300 grit. The color doesn't mean much as long as the floater is flat and is not below 45 thousandths in thickness. Always check your gears for excessive wear or cracking. Also check your pressure plate for any excessive wear or cracking. It's highly unusual. Check it nonetheless. Okay, if you have to take the pressure plate off, this is how you do it. Back off all 5 adjustment screws that hold the spring and retainer in place. Back the spring out. Once you take all the springs out, along with the adjusting screws and retainers, you pull the pressure plate off. Check for excessive wear, any kind of cracking. Check your spring height and wear. New springs come in at 500 thousandths or 12.70 millimeters. If it measures below 480 thousandths or 12.19 millimeters, it's time to replace them. Now we're going to reassemble the clutch in the reverse order that we took them apart. Put the dowel pins into the levers and slip the lever into the dowel pin slot. And repeat that 5 times. After you install the levers, slip the pressure plate back on. Slip it back on the drive hub assembly and flip it over. Hold it in place. Reinstall the springs. Put the retainers on top of the springs. Put the adjusting screws back in. Dial the screws in clockwise until you start to feel some pressure on the spring. Adjust the screws, the adjusting screws down to 220 thousandths. When adjusting the adjusting screw, making sure that all 5 are adjusted as closely as possible to 220 thousandths. And when adjusting off of that, make sure that they're all consistently the same height. 220 thousandths translates to 5.58 millimeters. Now we put in the lining and floaters. Lining first, then a floater, then lining, floater, and lining. Reassemble the fixed plate. With the 5 Torx head screws. Tighten all the screws lightly so that the fixed plate seats properly. Make sure all the screws are good and tight before you reassemble the drum. This is a T25 Torx bit. That's what you'll need to tighten up the Torx head screws on the fixed plate. When adjusting the clutch, check the air gap between the pressure plate and the inside lining. That should measure about approximately 25 thousandths plus or minus 5 thousandths, or 0.635 millimeters air gap. The reason for keeping the air gap in a specified range is to keep the clutch working at an optimal level. As the friction discs wear and the floaters wear, this will increase the air gap, which in turn increases the stall speed, or total lockup. You can bring the air gap back into factory spec by using optional thicker floaters. Install back on the bike. Once you remove the clutch cover from the engine, then remove the screw with the copper washer from the cover. After cleaning the cover, apply JB Weld or any metal epoxy to threads of bolt. Mix the 2-part JB Weld together. Mix the 2 parts together thoroughly prior to applying to the screw. Apply on all the way around the threads. Reinstall the screw into the cover and tighten. Epoxy is set for 30 minutes, and then we can grind the boss on the inside. What the clutch cover looks like before grinding. The height on that boss is approximately 7/16 inches, or about approximately 11 millimeters. Be sure to measure from the inside of the boss, not the outside. Alright, we grind down the boss using a Dremel. You can do it any way that is most convenient for you. When you finish grinding, the height of that boss should be 3/16, again measuring from the inside because of the draft of the cover. 3/16 are 4.75 millimeters. This is a before and after view. The cover on the left is before we grind. The cover on the right is modified to fit the 3-disc clutch. Remember to clean the inside of the cover prior to reinstalling.
Okay, this is the stall speed test. It's very important. Take the bike to a secure area. Hold down on the brake and on the front and rear. Typically we have an adult do this test. Okay, fire up the bike and we're going to see where the RPM stops. You rev up the engine fully for 1 second and then let off. And wherever the tach stops, that's the stall speed. Okay, as you can see on the tach, the stall speed is 97.20. This is a little higher than we like it, so we're going to readjust the clutch for less slip. Okay, as you can see now, it's just a shade under 9400, which is where we recommend, and we're going to go with that setting.